Hello, I'm Kyle Ingram, the president of COLLAB. It's been a while since we've spoken. There's been quite a few changes actually in our organization, all of which I think will be beneficial for the long run. We had to do some restructuring and some reorganizing, and that led to the addition of Maury Fields to becoming a new board member. Maury will be a great asset in terms of community outreach and community networking. Somebody who's very tapped into a lot of the different organizations that work not only in Merchantville but in other communities as well. So we look forward to bringing him on officially and having him do some work with us. We also have a new vice president, Bianca Ingram. She's very talented. She's an entertainer. She's a singer, and she's always on social media. She's going to be helping with some of our social media strategies to get the messaging out there, to reach demographics that we want to reach, and to help consolidate our messaging in ways that so people can reach them. And she's already been doing some of that. I don't know if you guys have been following our page, but you probably have seen a shift in tone, and that would be thanks to Bianca Ingram. Or actually Bianca Gauze. Sorry, Bianca. It's my sister. She's married. She's Bianca Gauze now. I wanted to briefly talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and talk about, just give you my perspective on it. I've been in quite a few discussions about whether or not that was the jury came to the correct conclusion. I don't think they did. I understand why some people do. The idea of castle doctrine or the idea of self-defense goes out the window when you have already committed a crime, which he did by, having an illegal firearm. Now, I am not actually interested in debating any of the things that happened during the trial. The problem that we face in this country happens before that. From my perspective, the way I look at it and the way I feel, and there's a lot of data to back this up, if Kyle Rittenhouse had been black and he had gone to any kind of protest, it doesn't have to be Black Lives Matter protest, if he had gone to, if it had been a rally for Trump, if it had been a workers' rally, if it had been any rally, and he was black, and he not only brought an AR-15 but fired that weapon, do we think he could have successfully retreated into the protection of the police without being fired on? My answer is no. I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's possible for, in a high tension situation where there is skirmishes and outbreaks of violence, for a black person to have a weapon and not be seen as a threat. I don't think it's possible for them to fire that weapon and not be fired back up on in this country. So history has not shown that to be the case in this country. So before we even discuss the trial, before we talk about, how the criminal justice system works, and the discrepancies between it being black and white, you have to look at how we even got there. He was allowed to survive the night. In many circumstances, in many cases, there are black people who did not have a weapon, who were killed because they were seen as threats. So now let's we can talk a little bit about the trial. We can talk about how the judge didn't want the victims of the crime to be called victims and wanted them to be called rioters and looters. You could talk about the discrepancy of being, the jury having, I believe it was one black person maybe, and I don't know if they were on the actual jury, if they were an alternate. We can talk about the overall tone and the judge's clear bias. All of that, all of that's well known and well documented. I mean, you can look at almost any statistic and see that for the same crime, black people are going to get a harsher sentence or be sentenced to prison, while white people will be given a slap on the wrist. This just, it just highlighted so many of the discrepancies. I mean, that's really what the trial did. It's very frustrating though. Like, while everyone that I know was expecting this outcome, we saw this coming. It's very frustrating to know that so many black people aren't given that right. Like, why can't we have a trial where we're seen as human? Why can't we have a trial where we are given the courtesy of being a person, seen as a whole person, seen as a whole human? Obviously, they did that with Kyle Rittenhouse, right? They saw him as they were giving him the benefit of the doubt everywhere. That doesn't happen with us. We're never given that. And this is not it's institutional. It's how we're viewed by the criminal justice system. So that leads me to the next point I wanted to make. I was watching a video by Ture, where he was speaking from years ago, and he was talking about the difference between mobilization and organization. And he said it's easy to mobilize. Mobilizing means some kind of racist touchstone point happens, like say the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Makes people want to mobilize, makes people want to do something. It makes people angry. And it's easy to mobilize around that one event. Mobilize to that event. Get people active and engaged around this singular event. Organization is a little bit different because it attacks the system. It's something that you look at how this event was created, and you don't want any more of these events. Now, he said organizers also have to mobilize, right? You have to have these points so you can point to them and use them to organize to change the actual system. You have to use those as touchstone points to let people know that this is what's happening. But it's a lot more difficult to keep people engaged to organize. I've always been more interested in trying to organize and trying to actually change this system that is creating this culture that allows trials like this to happen, that allows discrepancies like this to exist, that allows that allows us to feel so frustrated when we see these trials and know that wouldn't happen for us or for people that look like us. We have to attack the system that is creating this, and that takes more than just being upset, more than just tweeting. We have to get that judge out of there. We have to change our district attorneys. We have to be very active in our local communities and in our national policies, like in the creation. We can't just give away our votes. We have to exchange our votes for things that we need in our communities. We have to vote for people who are going to really and truly advocate for us and not back down when someone else comes with a different idea. They can't back down. They have to fight for us, and we have to vote for people that will do that. And that's difficult, and that's really what it's difficult to do that. It's difficult to find those people. It's difficult to be engaged in that way, and that is what we've been missing. That's what COLLAB is about. We're trying to get black people a presence in local politics, which will then lead to national politics. It's really about grassroots. It grows up, and one of the things that we're doing about that now is we are trying to educate people about the different roles, different elections, and how their voice can be used locally. We have a new voter education tab that we're creating that we will be building on. Eventually we would like to create a database that people can go to get educated on about how to vote locally, about why it's important to vote locally. And that is one of the things that we are focusing on 2022. I think it's really important that we understand the crucial point in time that we're in, that things are not all good right now, that there's a lot of things that can change quickly if we don't act. If any of this resonates with you, be sure to share this message with your friends and family. We can use all the support that you can give. We are still a new organization and we are figuring this out. But the mission remains the same, that we want to have a more equitable position for black people in local politics. And we want to educate people about the importance of being politically active, not just voting, but being active, knowing what you're voting for, knowing what you're asking for, and putting the right people in position to do right by your community. Thank you.